there on the ever-changing, always amazing rules that we've got for COVID safe, but we thought that was easiest to do that for you so that you had the latest information on it. I'm doing work in a few areas of the state, and I know that some people are quite confused on what they have to do with customers, whether they have to take people's names, whether they have to keep them, how it's got to be done, and so forth. So Chrissy and I had a discussion this morning, and she's got the latest ones, which she'll put up in that right-hand column on the chat area. I think whilst we're talking about that, it's probably, I live and work in Brisbane, and I just saw the ABC lunchtime news, and people are still really worried about COVID in the cities. I think in the country areas, I was in Bundaberg at the weekend, and people are pretty blasé about it all. Whereas in the cities, because we have to live cheek to jowl with other people, they're all concerned. So I think one of those things is just understanding that, and that it's best if you inform them first, so that they are confident that you're going to look after them, which we know you will, but they just get a bit concerned about it, whereas people in the country generally just know that everyone's going to look after them. So that's a point. It was really interesting. I drove up to Bundaberg on Thursday, didn't see one caravan on the road. I drove back last night to Brisbane, and it was just like someone had opened the floodgates. There was so many people heading north, and a lot of people in caravans and so forth. So, and others I don't know, because I mean, when you see a caravanner, you think they're a tourist, but there's a whole lot of people in cars as well. So obviously the trade is starting to come now, particularly from the southeast quarter, and move on up through the state. The previous weekend, they didn't have much notice on it. So I assume that they've been taking a week or so for people to get themselves planned and into gear to get moving. So that's a bit of from down here. And in terms of, it's really interesting, you guys are dependent on the drive market, but we often forget about the drive market. Everyone talks about planes and this and that. Apart from Tasmanians who have to drive around their state, they've got no choice. Queenslanders are the second most self-drive holiday people in Australia, and they take 13 self-drive day trips a year and 4.5 overnight trips annually. So they're out and about. So they're our market, obviously, that we've got to talk to. So that's I think something that's important, is that we've done a few of these sessions, Chrissy, where it's really interesting. I mean, I know your area pretty well, and I think it's fantastic, but it's almost like we've got to re-educate some of the operators in Mackay as to what you've got here. People in the hotels and motels, they change and turn around, and I know Mackay Tourism does a good job on that, but whether we perhaps need to almost relaunch or re-educate people about the Valley and Finch Hatton and Eungella. Chrissy, could you just comment on that? It's just something that I've type of felt as we've been going through this process.
Yeah, I think, sort of, I suppose a while ago we had the bushfires, and there was a push to get, everybody up to Eungella to visit. And now I suppose at the moment it's very much, like everybody's saying, get out and go driving, but there's sort of, I suppose there's not a plan. Like, we haven't sort of created a proper plan yet. It's interesting, I know, with like some of my friends and that, they've already booked Christmas in July, what they're calling it, Christmas in July accommodation up in Eungella. Like, they've already booked it. So they're sort of creating their own story, I suppose. So that, I think that just goes to show that there's probably a lot that we can do and help you with to, just to get more people up there. And I know quite a few people in the last weekend or two have already had day trips up there.
Thanks, Chrissy. I wasn't picking on Mackay Tourism, by the way, but it's just, there's been so much going on, and I just felt that, in our discussions is that, and also you've got in the last year or so, you've got a lot of new people running motels and GMs and so forth, that it's probably time to do we can talk about it after this, but get some feedback from the group, whether it's the opportunity to either do educationals or whether it's knocking on some doors in Mackay, so that we make sure that everyone in those front offices are aware of what's up there and that it's worthwhile to go and do that.
Yeah, because I actually know I mean, I've only been with Mackay Tourism a year, but I already know people who are either new operators, new managers, new staff, or the owners have come in to actually operate the motel because you know they sort of had to save costs, and
Yeah.
they might live in Toowoomba or Brisbane or somewhere, and all of a sudden they've landed here in Mackay to operate their motel. However, they don't really have the knowledge that their managers had.
Good. Yeah. Well, that's just a bit of a feeling I had, was that, you know, it's probably time for us to talk about how we relaunch the area or re-educate the operators, particularly in Mackay, to make them aware of that, because it's also a great thing in terms of extending stay in the area, of, you know, getting people to do that. And I know you work hard on your website and social media to get the message out for the visitors when they're travelling, but it's also to make sure that all our people that are running caravan parks and motels and hotels and whatever plug it as well. Oskar, how have you felt in terms of I suppose you only see the end of it where people get to you, so you know they know you're there then.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned before, I mean, educating the operators probably is not a bad idea, because not quite sure who is at the front office. You know, sometimes you only have young ones at the front office. Yep. They have absolutely no idea or no interest to sell a product. You know, so I think it's very important, especially those people which deal with the customer straight away, because whatever the first person in contact is telling to the customer, he or she can convert that customer maybe to stay for another night. You know, because sort of if they sort of explore what their intentions are and what they want to do, and if they say, look, if you stay another extra night, you can sort of you need to do a day trip, you know, go up to Eungella or Finch Hatton Gorge and things like that. You know, it's all about connecting with the customer and working from there. But I personally would like to see more businesses in Mackay to work together with accommodation places up here in Eungella or Broken River. So especially the ones which are members of Mackay Tourism, if they can come up with a package deal, or even with like a triangle, Mackay, Whitsunday and Eungella, you know, so maybe have like 2 days in Mackay, 2 nights in Mackay, 2 nights in Eungella, where visitors sort of can fly in, hire a car, and then explore sort of Mackay, Eungella, and the Whitsundays, or just Mackay and Eungella. Yeah, that's connection that I would love to see, you know, with the accommodation places. And also, yeah, they say, look, we create a 3 or 4 or 5 day package, and they stay so many nights in Mackay, so many nights in Eungella, or per person in Whitsundays, you know, a whole week, you know, they can, and everybody benefits from it, you know.
Yeah, so that's a great point. And talking about Whitsundays, they've just reopened their visitor information centre. They're at Whitsunday Gold Coffee basically on the highway there. So that's another place where I think you know, to be able to educate them, because, you know, not just what you've got there, but, you know, you talked about the triangle, so to be able to do that, for instance, and I'm not sure, Chrissy, because they've probably got some new staff in there and new volunteers and so forth, is that, you know, it's timely that we made sure that we got that message through to them, because there's virtually nothing in the Whitsunday area that competes with what you've got up in the valley and Eungella and Finch Hatton. So, it's not as if they're going to lose things because of it. It's actually about gaining because there's more things to see and do in that area.
Yeah, because all their things are sort of water-based, and they go,
Yep.
we don't, they say that they actually don't have much, you know, sort of land activities. So we've actually got Dan from Mackay Tourism coming on at 2 p.m. and he'll have a chat to you about, you know, what the marketing plans are and that sort of thing. And we can sort of discuss this with him as well. And, you know, they may be already working on some of those things, but yeah, so he'll be, in about 10 minutes or so he'll be on.
Yeah, and also, you know, potentially simple things like itineraries and so forth about, you know, how we get, I know he's got quite a few and we talked about it the other day, but what itineraries are there to help people? How do we get it out to them? You know, and is there a simple door knocking thing that happens with perhaps Mackay Tourism and a couple of operators or whatever to do with Sunday Visitor Information Centre? Now it's new and open. The fact that it had only been open for a very short time, hadn't it, Chrissy, before COVID closed it? So
yeah, I went to the opening of it. I think it was only February or yeah.
So, you know, that's an important one, I think, for us, just to, it's a re-education of people to make sure that they're aware of that. Now, we've got some more people joined us.
Yeah, we've got Nick from the Flack Yard.
Yeah, sorry, I've been on, but I've had my camera turned off. I'm like, what's
okay.
going on here?
And we've got Jolene. Jolene used to have a bed and breakfast, but what exactly are you doing now, Jolene? Like, she just sort of gets involved in everything. She's a bit like me.
Yeah, just a lot of community consultation and pretty much just, you know, doing the best I can to promote the region and what we have in our backyard, because I'm a lover of, obviously, our hometown and tourism as a whole. Being from Cairns, it's sort of my background. So yeah, I just like to promote local businesses up here and make sure that we're doing it the best we can.
Well, yeah, I mean, having somebody like you who wants to do something like that, that's perfect for us to be able to work with. Yeah, so we can actually create action plans and things so that we're not just all talking about it, we actually create things that happen.
Yeah, definitely. Just on that, I know Oskar was talking about the self-drive and that self-drive market. I'm thinking, do we have anything that we've got at both the Proserpine Airport and the Mackay Airport, perhaps in the car rental section? I don't know how that works. I know it's something that is not usually sort of targeted, but I'm just thinking that if somehow we could get that first point of contact when they're hiring the cars and the vehicles, making them aware at that point that there's more places that they can actually visit, might be a good start.
Yeah, we'll put that on. What we do from this hour is we create lists, and yeah. So James and I sort of create a list so that we can work out which actions that we can all come back together to work on. So we'll put that on. That's part of the list now.
And unfortunately, I have a meeting with my daughter this afternoon. I have to pick her up in a few minutes, so I won't be able to stay for the whole session. So hi and bye almost, everybody.
Well, while we've got you there, is there anything else that you would that you want to share with us, so that we?
So just with my thoughts about Eungella and keeping people here for longer. Obviously now we have the gallery that's open. So possibly incorporating that, the new art gallery.
What did you say? What open? Oh, the art gallery. Yeah.
Yeah, the art gallery. So, and that's an absolutely beautiful space, and it's within walking distance, sort of from Oskars over to the art gallery. So, and all the walks around focus walk and everything. But at this stage, it's pre-book. So, that's another. Another advantage that they can do while they're here. And I think focusing, depending on our demographics, is definitely the Great Walk. It seems to be a really trendy, popular thing to be doing all these walks of late. I've got younger cousins that basically do all their travels around Australia to go on these walks, you know, be it short walks, bigger walks, whatever. And I think that's really trendy at the moment. So it's something that we have an infrastructure that we can already use. So that could be a good possibility for more of our local market instead of our international travellers that we usually focus on.
Yeah. And see, then we've got Sue at Finch Hatton, who's got her petting farm that I didn't even really know about. You know what I mean? So it's
Valley View Minis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose
and then Nick, wonderful things like the dining and glamping tents. So that's going to be in the region. And when he does a night like that, then maybe that can encourage them then to come further up the valley for the remaining day, you know, or explore that day to come back down for dinner.
Yeah.
That's about us getting what we call critical mass of product. So a whole range of things for people to do so they can plan their trip and spend longer there. Because what often happens is people then get to somewhere and go, oh, I didn't know about that. If I knew about that, I would have stayed an extra or would have planned to do this. So when Dan gets on, we might talk to him about perhaps some suggested itineraries for people.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely short-term stuff. Long-term stuff, I'd like to see a whole range of things, but it's about infrastructure and council permits and all the rest of it, you know. But short-term, to get people back up here, I think that personally, that's sort of where I envision that we could steal some market people from.
And do you know, like last weekend, Deb from Freckle Farm, I think on the Sunday they just did some farm tours. They pre-booked everything. Everything was sold out. And, you know, people are just, because I look at, Mandy from Lowlines couldn't come on today either. So, but I look at, you know, some of your farms and that up there, you know, whether it be Dale at the dairy or whatever, you know, to.
So that's what I was thinking. I was thinking of doing like a farm tour where we could incorporate going to Mandy's, going to Dale, seeing the milking. Like when I used to take my international guests to the dairy to see that milking process, they were just in awe, you know, absolute awe of being able to see that first experience. I think people are looking for. They're looking for those experiences more than just something, you know, they want to have that different experience that we take for granted every day. So, yeah, maybe a tour that could combine that whole, you know, going out to then the beef, cattle, you know, and having a day tour, so to speak, pre-booked could be nice. Or even if it's an overnight tour, maybe they could come up and do that tour during the day, go down to Nick and do the glamping that night, you know?
Yeah. And this is where we find out about things, when we talk to the locals and actually find out what's up there. You know, sometimes we don't know some of the experience.
You know, trying to just work with what we've got. So what we already know. Perhaps, you know, that tour can go around to the site at Crediton Hall and see, you know, what's existing at Crediton Hall and the old Crediton Hall, and then incorporate plans thereafter. You know, I don't know how much interest people would have in that type of thing. Yeah, so maybe someone could do a fire tour. Maybe people would be interested in going around and seeing what happened prior to the fires and then after the fires, you know. Because we're in the process of creating a book and a digital QR code. So hopefully some sculptures around in the next 12 months where people can go to the sculpture.
Who's creating that? Sorry, who's creating that?
I'm working on it. We have some grants. We have some grants, but it's in the process. So we have to do the stage 1, which is the book and the short film. And then stage 2 will be hopefully some sculptures, because we had it as an arts recovery process. So there's blacksmithing and everything, workshops happening. And then with that blacksmithing, hopefully we'll get a couple of big sculptures that people can come and see, because that seems, you know, that silo artwork and those bigger sculptures seem to be fairly popular. I know that my in-laws at the moment are out in Hughenden doing the arts tour of the sculptures out there. So anything like that can attract people up here to sort of get them to have a look around.
Okay, well, you need to keep us posted on all that. Like, keep us informed.
I will, and I actually do have to go because the people that are coming to interview my daughter have just driven up the driveway and I haven't got her yet. So
Thank you, Jolene.
thank you very
Fantastic.
much for your time. I look forward to looking back through the note. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, you know, all my contact details are open to everyone. So good to see you all.
Okay,
Bye,
thanks,
Oscar.
Sarah.
Hi, Nick.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
So, Chrissy, that's another one. So every time we've run one of these, we've found new products.
I know. It's been quite amazing. We've had one with corporate hotels, one with the caravans, and now this, and we're just sort of finding out things. It's good. That's why we're doing it.
So when Dan joins us, which shouldn't be too far off, he can talk what he's doing, but we can also talk about potentially itineraries and how his area may be able to help with that. He's in the communications area of Mackay Tourism.
And he's been like doing the marketing.
Oh, speak about that. How's that for an intro? And his face appears.
I just sent him a text and said, jump on now.
Here I thought it was magic.
Hi, Dan.
Hey, Chrissy, how you going? Hey, everyone.
Hi there.
Bye.
Dan, we've just been having a little chat about what there is up the valley. So I don't know whether you know Sue. She's got Valley View Minis.
Okay, I see.
And we've just been talking to Jolene, who just had to go, and she was telling us about how they're producing a book and all these other things up in Eungella with some funding they've just got, and the art gallery's reopened pre-booking. So maybe you take it away, James.
So, Dan, you know, the pressure's on you again, mate, because you come in after we've had half an hour of good ideas. And, you know, coming back to that discussion we had the other day about, you know, perhaps doing some more itineraries for that, showing that there's, you know, good, you know, buzzwords, but critical mass of things for people to do up there. So I think that, you know, if we can have a talk about that later on, we'll come back to the group, but I think that's one of those good practical things. The other things we talked about was potentially there was, when we did the larger hotels group the other day, there seems to be a lot of new people in town who really don't understand Eungella and Pioneer Valley and Finch Hatton. So is there an opportunity to perhaps, you know, have a little educational thing, whether it's even just visiting them and giving them, you know, those itineraries. And the other is the newly opened / reopened Visitor Information Centre up at Airlie Beach. Sorry, at the Whitsunday. It's not at Airlie Beach, it's across the line. To make sure, because that's another really good touch point for people, self-drive. So there's a few of those ideas there that I don't want to lump you with too much, but I think some really good, relatively quick and easy fixes that we can have in terms of gathering that information, putting it for the consumer, but also making sure those touch points have got it so they're aware of it.
Yeah, well, I think that just on the Airlie Beach point, like obviously we've done a bit of marketing with that rainforest reef itinerary, and even the Instagram itinerary. So sort of telling visitors to obviously the Whitsundays that, you know, you get their complement there, obviously blues and yellows of Whitsundays with the green of Eungella and the Pioneer Valley, because with that, obviously that shortcut, it's, you know, it's, what is it, about an hour and a half from Airlie Beach, or an hour 45 from Airlie Beach to Eungella. So it's you know, it's a pretty easy addition to, you know, a day trip, or even just an afternoon trip. You know, if they want to stay obviously in Mackay or in Eungella, you know, that's a bonus. But you know, we've tried to position the Pioneer Valley and sort of Eungella as you know, that sort of cap off a complete, like you might have saw in some of my media releases, been talking about creating the complete holiday with obviously with the Whitsundays and Mackay, and obviously, you know, we will look to expand that out into Isaac and talk about obviously adding a bit of, you know, outback to the rainforest reef. But you know, we've been sort of real active in, you know, positioning, when we position obviously Mackay with Airlie Beach product, it's really that Eungella area that's, I guess, the main draw card, obviously along with the wallabies, that we try and obviously promote.
Yeah, and you're not really in competition with them because they have a little bit of rainforest, but pretty small amount there. So, you've got something that really is an add-on. And I know from working with the Whitsundays guys is they do recognise they are short of land-based activities to do and activities when the weather's not good and so forth. So, they're aware of it. They're not hiding away from it. And I think it's just a matter, again, of getting their team and then the operators aware that it's not a difficult thing to do, as you say, for a day trip, or hopefully, spend overnight and do that. Or if they're drive holidays, going through to there on the way home and then down on the triangle.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, we obviously between Serena of VIC and obviously the new one at Proserpine, we do get all that drive traffic, whether it's coming from north or from the south, because the Proserpine Visitor Information Centre is actually north of the turn-off to Airlie Beach. So any travellers from Townsville or whatever will see that before they turn into Airlie Beach. So yeah, we're obviously got both main avenues and obviously through the airports as well. So that's sort of where we're positioning Mackay, and like we work very closely with the Whitsundays. Like they've got a lot of Mackay content, like our itineraries, visitor guides, that sort of thing. Are in the Proserpine VIC.
No, it's gone. I've lost them.
I lost the signal.
So we can still hear you. Can you still hear us?
No, I can't.
Dan?
Yes.
I wanted to let them know what had happened, but I can't get a hold of anyone.
Sue, can you hear us?
You'd have all their email addresses.
Dan, you're there?
Yeah.
No.
Your face is frozen on the screen.
It's moving here.
Oh, okay. It was frozen on mine.
So
Dan, is there particular itineraries that that we can show these guys of what's happening, or is there's something specific so they can, if they're in town and they want to scoot around to some hotels or whatever, they've got things. Is there anything sort of?
We've got obviously the Mackay, like Mackay in 24 hours, Mackay in 48 hours. Obviously, when we do a publication, when you get them printed, like it's not an easy thing to just get a new print run done. I know Nick, you're on the line with the food itinerary we did last year, like that. When we do run out of that, when we do get a publication run out, sort of in terms of how many we've been handing out for the VRC, we do always look at it and see, right, what businesses have changed, what experiences can be added on. So we'll obviously do that with the Flack Yard, replacing the News Church, Cafe Pinnacle. But in terms of...
Hi, it's Sue here. I don't know if anyone can hear me, but I've lost connection.
Oh, Sue?
I can hear you.
Yes, Sue, we can hear you. It's just that we can't see you. Can you hear us?
It's on mute at the
Oh, yeah,
moment.
I muted it before because it was unmute.
Right. Try now.
Sue, can you hear us? Oh, hang on.
Yeah.
Sue, can you hear us?
Wonder if I'd go out and I'll come back in again.
So she's not actually hearing us.
No.
I wonder, does she know about that? If she's looking in the chat box. All right, you keep talking. I'll send her a little message.
Yeah. I just want to touch base. When will that food magazine be republished again?
I'm not sure, to be honest, Nick. Sorry. I've talked to Gab, find out how many we've got left in the VIC. Obviously, with the VICs being closed, we haven't been handing out nearly as many because they are sort of primarily made for the Visitor Information Centre, like the paper copies for the Visitor Information Centre. Transitioning into digital is something sort of I'm pushing for. So basically we create them for social media, which takes out a lot of the printing costs, things like that. Well, obviously, the website, we can do that. I've got to have a look at if we can update the digital copy. My sort of PDF editing skills are not amazing, but I'm going to have a crack at that and see what we can do. But in terms of social media is probably our main source of information, I'd say, for visitors. So, it's much easier to obviously do a Facebook post of restaurants sort of up in the valley than what it is to get a publication printed. And that's maybe something I could look at. Rainey's actually taken over the social media now, so that could be something we could look at, is doing a post on, different sort of restaurants that are in the Pioneer Valley, or even just, experiences you can do in the Pioneer Valley, because our social media pages are really taking off. So.
Yeah, because even the financial aspect too, for us, social media is free. You pay through that through your Wi-Fi, but actually for us individually to print stuff out and then have it at the information centres, or at the, it's just too expensive for us to even fathom affording it. So obviously social media is definitely the direction of life, I suppose, with social media and stuff, and cheap advertisement, realistically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
we can certainly look at doing a Eungella sort of post. We did it, because they're so easy and quick to do. So
And then if because things have changed now with the past, so the Pioneer Valley is before it was a day trip, but now it's not a day trip anymore. You have when you look at, you have Finch down there, you have the Pinnacle Bay, you have Finch Hatton Pub, Eungella Pub, Broken River Mountain Resort, and now the gallery is open as well. The best time to see book yourself in and out of the gallery is in the afternoon. So now the direction that what we don't have at the moment, people are not staying long enough up here to have all those experiences, because they come up for a rush, they go Finch Hatton Gorge, they come up to Eungella and they go back again, So now we have to look at how or what we can do to so they stay a night or 2 nights up there. And as I said earlier to Chrissy, I would love to see more working together with accommodation places in Mackay, where they stay a few nights in Mackay and a few nights up here in the valley, so they can go down to Finch Hatton and enjoy, and then come back again and stay in the valley, without rushing through, So
I think obviously short term from COVID, we sort of have focused on the the locals that obviously are generally just going to be day trippers, and that was just a sort of a quick, real quick strategy to try and get some money getting spent again up in the valley. When we obviously restrictions start to ease, and they sort of already probably have to the extent with all of Queensland travel being allowed, we'll start to do familials, things like that, and get them to stay a night or 2 nights in the valley, to show that there is really good accommodation up there, and you can not, as you said, spend 2 nights in Mackay, 2 nights in the Pioneer Valley. It doesn't have to be just a full day up at the Pioneer Valley. There is accommodation up there, and eating at night, things like that justifies having a night or 2 up in the valley. So we can definitely look at that for sure.
Dan, so some friends of mine have called it just themselves like Christmas in July, and they're booked to stay up in the Eungella for a couple of nights, and so they've created their own their own little, I suppose, itinerary of what they're going to do, and gave it a name. And
I know the winter, it's sort of a little bit strange. I know we had last year before, we had snow up at Eungella, and a lot of people going up there because they don't, people that have lived in Mackay their whole life don't really know what a full-on winter's like, whereas you go up to Eungella and you stay at Broken Mount Resort, and you're not going to see snow, but you're going to get that log fire cabin style thing that, I grew up in that, so I'm sort of take it for granted a little bit. But a lot of Mackay locals are going up there to sort of, I guess, experience winter just as a bit of a tourist attraction. And, it's something that we haven't really had a real cold winter yet. I know Mandy Kennett is normally the go-to when it does get a bit of snow, because there's that place at her property that if it does get very cold, she gets sort of pretty severe frost. So, we can obviously, whenever that happens, we share it on the social media, and the locals love it. Like, there's always proves real popular.
So Dan, one of my claims to fame was to do Brass Monkey down in Stanthorpe a million years ago, which
turned cold down there,
which turned winter into the busiest time of year. So, I think there's, and it wasn't predicated on snow, because that happens very, very infrequently down there, but it was just the change of weather, to be able to sit in front of a fire, all of those things. Perhaps talk about a bit of cuddling, some local port, whatever it might be. But they're good stories too to tell at this time of the year. So that that's a nice little local thing, as you say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
you just need to come up with another kinky name for it, like Brass Monkey, rather than Christmas in July or whatever, which a lot of places do. If there's something that perhaps we can all get round a bottle of something and have a good session to throw some names in, a bottle of Sugar Shed rum, perhaps, and come up with a nice, sexy name that the media grabs hold of.
Yeah, for sure. No,
which is great, because it's not as if we're going to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to put together everything that's there, but sort of put it under an umbrella of a really, something cool.
Yeah, and to Oskar's comment, to make sure people are aware of all the things that are there, so they can allow enough time in the area, not just race through and think there's only a couple of things. Dan, again, this is the third session we've had, and again, the third time that we've found new product in areas, which is really good to add into the mix.
It's important. Too easy. Now, is that everything, Chrissy, sort of got from me?
Anybody need to ask Dan anything else about what's going on?
Yeah, I got a question, I suppose. To sort of coincide with, the bush tucker sort of style and direction, do we have any connection through to local community or elders? Because obviously, I know down here in Pinnacle is the Yui Borough, but I'm not sure. I believe once you get up into Eungella, it's a different mob up there. Is there any connection through to, I'm taking, for instance, you do the cultural, you go and see the kangaroos on the beach, and you go and do the bush tucker walk. Is there any, connection to country, close around here? It seems to work really well seeing the kangaroos. Why can something not work with platypus and, that side of things? I don't know if anyone's got any insight on that.
Yeah, it's something, we've, I guess the whole Indigenous tourism space, obviously the Wallaby Tours is, I guess, leading that. It's an Indigenous experience now. It's probably a place that we haven't, that we haven't played in a lot. It's probably more of a Taz question to answer than myself.
We did start discussing that just before COVID hit, because this was supposed to be the year of the Indigenous. And we were sort of having those discussions, and then Mr. COVID came along and it knocked everything off its perch, literally. But it was definitely something that, we were looking at. Remember, we were looking at having somebody in the VIC at Serena, storytelling and that sort of thing. So that would, So I'll put that down for a question.
Find out. That's what I've been doing today, is catching up on things that were meant to happen just before COVID. So and it might sound a bit like I'm just blowing a bit of wind up my own smoke, but there is any of the guests that do come into the restaurant looking for that point of difference, that something special
that is not dining anywhere else here in the region, you know. So there seems, from my point of view, you know, I spend a lot of time on the floor talking to guests as well as cooking the food. There does seem to be a lot of interest into this bush tucker, and you know, I know I'm finding it a little bit difficult to find some local knowledge and understanding about the bush tucker around here. So, you know, there seems to be, you know, business is okay, it's not bad, but, you know, we're kind of opening up to a different area of, you know, different spectrum of people who are dining with a different experience, you know. So, you know, to be able to feed off that already interested crowd who are, you know, driving out for that dining experience, as well as, you know, I had guests on Sunday that were going to the arts centre up there in Eungella. So they came for lunch at the restaurant, and they were specifically going up to Eungella to go and see the new art space up there. So, you know, how can we find that area? Maybe Taz has got a good connection for us, and, you know, whether it's even parks and wildlife, you know, is there anyone even based up there in parks in Eungella who know anything about that sort of stuff? We can tap into a market that's already generating a lot of business for, you know, the wallabies on the beach, you know, just as another added bonus to the region. You know, have a bush tucker dining experience, but also go on a walk through one of the rainforest tracks that are already there and talk about some bush tucker that might be on there. So, you know, just a thought.
No, for sure.
Can I say, in relation to Indigenous heritage and things like that, a lot of work has been put in with the project up at the Eungella Over, and it's sitting at the moment. Stage 2 has been completed. Sorry, stage 1 has been completed. Stage 2 and stage 3 is still sitting with the council, and there was part of the project was a lot of Indigenous heritage, and there's already a statue right on the edge there where the oval is, where the there's a shelter there next to the toilet. There's an Indigenous statue there already, you know, and the rest we are just waiting for it. So more or less it's put in hold, you know, and that might be a good opportunity maybe for Mackay tourism as well, you know, to push that direction and go into more into Indigenous heritage, you know, because there's a lot up here in Eungella, and also with the history and stuff like that, you know, and a lot of work has been already done, you know, so yeah.
Who did you say has done that work, Oskar?
There's a project sitting with the Mackay Regional Council, a three-stage project. Stage 1 has been completed, and stage 2 and stage 3 is waiting for funding, you know, and we are waiting for that to be completed. And part of it was have a nice, a little bit more better what Rocky did with a nice viewing platform down the valley as well up there, and then like an archway, you know, with all the heritage and things what's available up here, you know? So yeah, and the Indigenous heritage was part of it to incorporate it, you know.
Yeah, there's that the one up at up on the mountain up there you're talking about, Oskar, in Rocky, the new treetop walk they've done.
Yeah, the new.
I'll go, but...
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Yes, the council, we want ours to be better than the one in Rocky.
Good.
They beat us to it, you know. So and I think if you the whole idea is if you have something at the end of the road, you know, it encourages people to drive up through the valley, you know. And then all those businesses on the way they benefit from it, you know. That's the whole idea, and then they can experience all those different experiences on the way and go all the way up to the top, you know.
So, Chrissy, I was just thinking, I wonder if Greater Whitsunday Food Network have done anything in that space in terms of the bush tucker thing.
Not that I know of, but I'll ask them at our next meeting.
Yeah, just worthwhile seeing that, you know. They've got a pretty broad scope of work, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've run the tours. I know they've done the tours from town that was quite successful. So, when I was doing the private chef side of things, I was a part of the Freckle Farm, but it was Freckle Farm, Goanna Brewery and Sugar Shed, but it never really went off. But from word on the street through GWF was that the trips up to low-lying cattle, the dairy farm, and something else they were doing up there were all very successful. So, you know, in terms of creating that, you know, tourism side of things, and they had their own bus and all that sort of jazz. So it's something that has worked for that upper region quite well in the past that I very well know. So, you know, there's no reason, I suppose, once restrictions get a little bit more eased, you know, it's something we can go to Greater Whitsunday about and get them getting that ball back on the wagon, really.
So that's a good point, Nick, because I was involved in Bundaberg and also up in a little place called Hampton, north of Toowoomba. And whilst, as you say, things are just being held back, both of them had really good food tours operating. They were really flexible ones, though. You had a lady who had a type of minibus that would do that, and if she then had the numbers, she would take it through to a 20-odd seater coach. So, and they were running, I think, 3 or 4 days a week. So, you know, the place is much smaller than Hampton's. Only got about 5 houses in it, so they get there from visitors and also from Toowoomba. But you know, Bundy's 40-odd thousand people, so we're looking at a lot less people there of you know, for the starting point and visitors. And I think it's the way it's put together. And I think you're right. It's probably the product that people are wanting to see, which is up around Eungella and that area.
James, so that was the private business that owned that bus, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Done by a lady who was very interested in it and started it just with her own car first, actually, and then she had a very flexible business model where she had to deal with, I think, let's say it was budget rental car, and so that she could then just when she needed a larger vehicle, she could hire it from them, so she wasn't having to pay to have a large coach sitting around. And I think before COVID came in, she was doing about 4 reasonably full days a week trips, so quite successful.
I'll send that link to the video that we did on the agri-tourism because she was in that video.
Yep.
Yeah, for anybody who didn't get to see that. All right. Anybody got any? Hey, Nick, I was thinking of the Quest. I actually live at the Quest in town, and I know that they've got a. I know that they've got a bus here, a little bus, and I was thinking I probably need to get you in contact with them because I can just see them selling, you know, like a night or a night's accommodation in the Quest. They sort of basically take them up to you, bring them back. They have dinner at your place. I can just sort of see something like that working because they're actually, you know, trying to get that leisure tourist.
Yeah, well, ultimately, from my perspective, it's about the whole valley experience. You know, it's not just about coming to the Blackyard for lunch. It's about going and seeing platypus and, you know, having some ice cream at Oskars for afternoon tea and, you know, drop into the Blackyard for dinner on the way back to town. You know, it's about creating that day trip experience, you know, that can entice 3, 4, you know, 5 different packages. You know, it's about bringing us all together, you know.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I just don't know whether they would do the whole thing in their Quest bus.
Yeah, well, you know, or then we need to find somebody who's able to do it, you know. Gargett Bowls Club have got a van sitting there, a 12-seater van that only takes the bowls guys around to their trips, you know, a couple of times a month. So, you know, there's got to be another business in the region that could possibly look at jumping into something like it. Do we get in contact with Trans North or, you know, another local business that has a van that sits there that does nothing, that we can start creating, you know, day trippers for the people who aren't willing to spend the night out here as well. And
the organisation's got those too.
Yeah. PCYC, I think I put you onto PCYC once because they
they struggled to get a driver. to do the job. So Trans North with an ex-best bet, I think it was an 18-seater for $640 or something. So, you know, it's still a lot of money when you're selling tickets for bums on seats and ice creams and a lunch package, you know.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da-da. But yeah, just a little thought.
I will mention that to Taz though, because I know he was sort of looking at trying to get some projects, you know, sort of, I suppose, a bit shovel ready, so they actually had the structure of it so that people could sort of, they didn't have to work all that out for themselves. They could just sort of see what the product was and basically just do it. Yeah, so I might add that one to his list.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Sounds good. That sounds pretty good.
All right.
We might.
All right, cool.
People are busy unless they've got any other questions. We've got some work to do after this, or work to give to Kaz and Dan and other people. Good of us, isn't it? If you've got anything else, by all means, bring it up. If not, what we will do is communicate back to you the outcomes of these things. So, and potentially have another session where we bring in some of the new product that people aren't aware of to talk to. So there'll be a few more of these being run like this over the next 10 days roughly. Chrissy.
Yeah, we were hoping to be finished up by the end of the month, but what we'll do is, like, we're trying to bring accommodation together with you know, like, I suppose people operating and have got experiences, and you know, everybody's sort of looking for a way to be connected. So I think this is sort of a way for us to sort of create some action, so it's just not all talk.
Yeah. So we'll be doing a bit of speed dating.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so we've got a couple more sessions that we've got groups with, like the Isaac group and the motels and people with experiences and that. But then we've got about 3 or 4 sessions left at the end. So we'll probably pick that people that need to be together in the same Zoom session to be able to just have a conversation.
Can I ask you something else, or
Yeah.
maybe you guys thinking about? You know, you have the tour out there with the kangaroos, and you have a ranger out there. Is there a possible way that you can utilize the ranger? And I know he does, because it's in the morning, and the platypus is something in the afternoon. So is there a way that you can utilize the ranger and have sort of tours coming up where he sort of walks around with the group and explains about the everything about the platypus, and then shows them walks from one platform to the other one, and in the meantime he just talks to them, you know, and where people can view the platypus and also get a little bit of knowledge of it, you know. So utilize that ranger for the morning out for your sunrise tours with the wallabies, and in the afternoon with the viewing tour with to see the platypus, and then maybe something along the way, stop somewhere or stop for dinner on the way back, or something like that, you know, incorporated, you know. If you guys about, you know, to
It's certainly something that I'll take to Taz. I don't know whether we would use the same person, because he sort of gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be there. So, but it's certainly, I can imagine there'll be funding and that coming out as well after this whole COVID thing, you know, trying to pick up areas that are really struggling. So I'll certainly mention that one to Taz, Oskar, because that, I mean, it sounds like a good idea, whether it be the same ranger or a different ranger.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to see that people have to pay to see the platypus, because that's for free, you know. But they have the option, if they want to do the tour, then they can do the tour, you know, because I don't want to create otherwise people get cranky, you know. So yeah.
Because that paid tour, the paid tour isn't happening with the kangaroos anymore, with the wallabies.
He's not.
No, not a paid tour. It's just basically Abe down on the beach with Murray, and but it's not a paid tour anymore.
Right, okay.
But Taz has had those discussions with Parks and with the Tourism Minister and so forth, so it's not a bad idea to float, Oskar.
Yeah, because people like, I mean, and then we have short rainforest circuits up there. One of them is only 700 meters, and beautiful rainforest. You know, he can walk through there, and he might be able to find some of that bush duck products while he walks through there. Now there might be something to link it together. You know, so I mean, it's the possibilities are there. You know, so it's just something to think about.
Yeah, excellent. And that's why we're having these conversations. Yeah, to create those things so that we can create something from it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the year of the Indigenous, you said. So, you know, let's focus on a bit of energy towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's sort of, you know, that all sort of got lost. So I'm not seeing what Tourism and Events Queensland, whether they're going to make next year that as well, or whether they're like really working. Have you seen anything in that space, James?
No, I haven't seen what they're doing in that space. I think they're probably waiting to see how quickly the state opens up in terms of that.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's definitely, like I said, we were having the conversation back in February.
That's right.
But we'll just restart it. That's all.
Yep. Sounds great.
Okay. How's that, everybody? Anybody want to say anything else? Thank you, Sue. It was nice to meet you. Thank you for coming along.
That's all right.
And in the chat box, I put there about just some up-to-date information from Tourism Events Queensland on operating your business safely, and that sort of covers all different sorts of businesses in that one. They've got posters, all sorts of things available on that site. And the other one is one that James found, COVID requirements for restaurants. So I'll send an email out with that to everybody as well. But that Tourism and Events Queensland one, yeah, it had a lot of things that you could use on it. You just sort of had to click on the right links. But yeah, because the whole COVID safe requirements for restaurants and that, they're sort of asking for that for Tourism Events Queensland to sort of be putting you on their ATDW and all that sort of thing. So it's something that, is anybody confused about any of that, or you sort of feel comfortable with what you're doing?
Well, I've had two different, I've had two different answers from two different departments.
That's, yeah, my son has a gym, exactly what happened to him.
Yeah, and I was talking to hoteliers down at Mount Tambourine the other day, and same deal. They got one thing from liquor licensing and another from the health department.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, two different, And because I've got the animals, I don't even know if it's worth opening at the moment because no one can touch the animals, which is a bit of a shame. It's not a petting farm if you can't pet the animals.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see what we can find in that regard. How are you going, Nick and Oskar, with the restaurant requirements?
Yeah, not bad.
It's all right. You know, the only annoying part is with the registration, you know, but that's, I mean, obviously something we have to.
Yeah.
But I don't see the purpose, because I wouldn't know if they write down the right name or the right phone number, you know. So, but anyway,
right.
That's what they want us to do, you know. But if we could do without it, you know, would be great. Would be just more relaxing. But otherwise, yeah, we had great support from the locals, you know, since we opened up from only 10 people, you know. So yeah, I was very happy with the support we got from the people in the Mackay region, you know. So it's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, we've been the same. We were booked out all weekend, but because of the rain, we decided not to open. But at the moment, we're sort of working towards our stage 2. So that's what we're working on at the moment.
Okay. Well, like I said, make sure you fill out that membership application, and we'll get you in the system, and then you'll be getting all the information. We send out up-to-date information on everything that's happening. And if you're confused about anything, just get in contact. We'll find you the right people to talk to.
Okay.
There's a fair bit happening.
That's everybody's problem. Everybody's been bombarded with so much information, you can't even remember which one to keep up with, you know?
Yeah.
And then we get into stage 2 and all the requirements are changed again. So it's like, for all of us up in this region who are in small business, it's hard enough just to get the doors open, let alone dealing with the day-to-day changes of the situation. So, you know, for us at the restaurant, in terms of taking people's information, is easy because everyone books. So I've already got your phone number and your full name, and all we need is your address. So, and we do that all ourselves, because you think, you know, every time a guest comes in, if they're using the pen, then you've got to sanitize it in between every single pen usage of every guest. So, you know, it's adapting and adjusting to what the requirements are. But, you know, and just going back to what James said, in the cities, everything's really strict. But for us in the country up here, COVID, what COVID? You know, it's you know what I mean? Like it's life as normal, you know, you just don't shake hands anymore, which is a little bit disappointing. But, you know, it's small business. We got to keep trucking along. We need to generate that income. We need to do the hard yards to keep the doors open. So yeah, you know, just rehashing on a few things today. It'd be really nice to see some packages put together, and you know, Mackay Tourism helping the region, the upper region of Pioneer Valley, and let's get some tours going. You know, let's get some people in specialty fields and areas who are 1,000 times better at doing that than I am, to help bring it together.
Yeah, that's true. Look, we've had people camping here, and I've had to tell them all about Eungella because they didn't know. They didn't know anything. And once I've told them, they've stayed for a second night because they've decided to go up there and have a look. They've gone and had a meal. It's
So where are those people from, Sue? Like, are they coming from?
Well, we've had people from Mackay who've lived in Mackay for 25 years and never been out here. We've had people from Germany who didn't know anything about Eungella at all. We had a couple from Ireland the other week, and I had to tell them about Eungella, and they ended up staying an extra night so they could go up and have a good look around. So they're coming from everywhere.
I suppose normally they would go through the visitor information centres that have been closed anyway. Do you know what I mean? So that normal source of information, because there was a huge push over in Germany. We had a guy on the ground over there basically just promoting Mackay for half a day a week. That was his job. Yeah. So, but I mean, you're never going to get to everybody, but yeah, well.
Especially if they're travelling around. These Germans had been over in Tasmania for a while, and then they had 7 weeks on the Gold Coast because of the COVID. They couldn't move. So they've been everywhere. So they might have missed out on those talks. I don't know.
Yeah, and I suppose we actually have our visitor information, like our book, in all the visitor information centres sort of up the East Coast, but they've all been closed.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's sort of, let's start again. Let's start afresh, and let's.
We're all in the same boat.
Yeah, I think this is where we started in terms of what Mackay Tourism might be able to do in terms of getting the word out and just refreshing people's knowledge about the place.
Yeah, sort of like a relaunch, like you said. I think that was very wise way to start.
The other thing, Chris, it might be worthwhile to look into it, as it has been mentioned about the rental market. Not only Mackay and the Whitsundays, maybe people which start from Brisbane or from Cairns or from Sydney and drive up the East Coast. Is there a way to get those brochures to the rental market, you know, so when they hop in the car, the brochure is there in the car, you know, they can say, look, there's Mackay, there's Whitsundays, or things like that, you know. Might be worthwhile to explore, you know. So because they hop in the car, normally they, especially, I mean, not as much now, but normally when they come from overseas, they focusing on driving on the wrong side anyway. But I mean, if they have that extra information as part of a package, you know, when they get all the paperwork and they pick up the car, may as well get them, maybe say, look, Mackay, there's a Mackay tourism visitors guide, you know, part of it, you know, so they can hand it out. Is that a way sort of to explore? And then they got it in the car.
Yeah, good idea. I've got that one down.
I've got a contact for Apollo for their marketing manager. I know her, so we can give you that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I mean that's a relatively easy thing that we can do to well, at the moment we've got a lot of our books around because nobody's been there to take them. So we can certainly utilize those ones. Yeah, good idea. Excellent.
All
right, everybody. Thank you so much. And like I always like to thank is our local buying foundation for just helping us with our funding for this, because it's I think by the end of it, hopefully it's all proved to be very valuable for us all. And like I said, and James said, if anybody's got any ideas or anything else you'd like us to have a look at, please let us know. I've got a whole page of notes from today. This is my biggest notes page. That's good.
And if you want to do it at 3 o'clock in the morning, don't ring me, ring Chrissy.
Great. Thanks, James. James has put me on 24-hour notice. Yeah, anyway, because like our thing is we're here for you. We really want to be able to help, but I suppose we all sort of have to dig in and help each other. So, yeah, let's have a good hard crack so that we can get all these people up and visiting, because it's a beautiful area.
Thank you, Chrissy. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thanks a lot, Chrissy. Thanks for all your help.
James. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Sue. Nice to meet you.
Yes.
Nice to meet you too.
See
See
you
you.
soon. See you soon, Oscar, too.
See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.